Let's imagine it to be a day not unlike today. The setting was a crossroads, not unlike the one where we gather right now. Like today, some dignitaries from the community had gathered for the occasion. Family members had gathered from far and wide. But in the center of it all were the travelers, those preparing for the journey of a lifetime, those on the brink of, yes, the greatest life transition they had ever experienced. And while this day occurred 4,000 years ago, we actually have an account passed down through the generations from oral history to scroll. That account appears in the book of Genesis, chapter 11. A traveler gathers on the brink of change, bids goodbye to his family, and heads out on a journey so unfamiliar he doesn't even know where he's going. That traveler is Abraham, and his journey from his homeland in Mesopotamia to what we now call the Promised Land is one of the most important journeys of all time. But he was not alone in that journey. In story after story across history, we have a traveler who says goodbye to the world they know and heads out into a world they don't know. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and not just religious figures, Oedipus, Hercules, Jason, Odysseus, and not just men, Atalanta, Eurydice, Jasmine, the Little Mermaid, and not just the past. Two of the greatest heroes of this summer set out from worlds they know into worlds they don't know. I'm speaking, of course, of Oppenheimer and Barbie. The greatest stories ever told are of people who go on journeys not unlike the journey on which all of you are about to embark. But before I remind you of the advice that Abraham and those other travelers receive and share some advice of my own, I want to begin with another part of that story from the book of Genesis, one that's often overlooked. It's the family that Abraham leaves behind. I realize that I am here today because those of you about to embark on your journey were asked to spend some of your last weeks at home, your senior summer, as they call it, reading my book, Life is in the Transitions. But I, too, am in the midst of a life transition. Just 4 days ago, my wife Linda and I dropped our identical twin daughters off at college. I attended a ceremony just like this one on Monday morning. And I'd like to begin by speaking to my fellow parents, especially those like me who are becoming empty nesters. Parenting is unlike any other endeavor. Our children come into our lives entirely dependent on us. But our job is to put ourselves out of business, to help our children become entirely independent from us. Sure, it's not entirely, we know. Our children will always be our children. But I'm here to tell you, you've done your job, parents. And what's more, there is blessing in your tears. There is purpose in saying goodbye. There is wisdom in the empty nest. Researchers at the University of Montana have found that even birds struggle with the empty nest. If the birds leave too early, they suffer. If the birds leave too late, they suffer. But when the birds find the right time to leave the nest, their survival rates soar. Today is the right time. But to those of you who are leaving the nest, I would like today, it would feel a little bit righter to your parents if you indulge me in one gesture. I'd love to ask all of the students in the crowd if you will turn to your parents, or if they're not here, think of your parents. And even if you don't know where they are, and even if you didn't agree with everything in how they raise you, I hope you will turn to them, wave, and say, "Thank you. I know today is a big day for you too." And now my message to the students in our midst. The good news for me is I don't have to look far for the best advice I can give you. You can find similar words in the very next chapter of Genesis, when an unknown voice, the voice of the divine, says in Hebrew, Lech Lecha, in English, go forth. And that's what I'm here to say to you. Go forth. Go far, go away, come back, go again, go by yourself, go with a friend, go with a sibling, go with a lover. Come, go, never stop. Be engaged in the questions of your day. Be a part of a brand new world. Go forth with what you have learned from us. Come back and teach us something new. Go, never stop. Jump, fly, walk, run, snowboard, skateboard, raft, row. Go out and embrace the world. Come back and build a new home. But whatever you do today, just go now while you are young and free and full of hope. In a word, travel. Travel. It seems like such a simple thing, but is it? The second edition of the Random House Unabridged Dictionary that sits by my desk defines travel as to go from one place to another. To go from here to there, to be transmitted. To travel, in other words, is to change, to adapt, to grow. To travel is to transition. In a world where we value waving the flag, repping the team, demonizing the other, traveling is a forgotten art. The summer I was your age, I made my first trip abroad with a group of fellow students. My first stop was with a homestay family in the Netherlands who invited the entire neighborhood to dinner. Everything on the table was gray. The boiled meat, the boiled potatoes, the boiled vegetables, even the boiled custard they offered for dessert. After dinner, everyone retired to the living room to watch TV, and I retreated to the bathroom. Only it wasn't a bathroom, it was a water closet and contained only a toilet, which, for the life of me, I could not figure out how to flush. I looked for a knob, a chain, a switch, a rope, nothing. No problem. I'll just open up the bowl and do it manually. Only the tank was at the top of a 7-foot pipe. So I put down the lid, climbed on the seat, grabbed onto the pipe, and was just about to shimmy up the wall when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Bruce, is everything okay? It turns out the entire family, or to be precise, the entire neighborhood, had grown so concerned about my well-being that they had abandoned the television set and hurried to the bathroom, I mean the water closet. Oh no, I said, I'm fine. Okay, they mumbled and returned to the living room. Meanwhile, back in the water closet, I was just preparing to resume my climb when there came a second, quieter knock on the door. It was the daughter, a girl about my age. Bruce, she whispered, pull down the pipe. And so it came to pass that I climbed off the wall, stepped off the lid, pulled down the pipe, and had my first experience in the wider world. That night, I cried myself to sleep. A week later, after meeting the girl's friends, riding bikes, and making liverwurst with my hands, I cried again, this time in awe, as that family, indeed the entire neighborhood, gathered at the train station to say goodbye and sang, as we just did moments ago, the Star-Spangled Banner in English as I pulled out of their town. That evening, I wrote my first letter home. My friends and fellow travelers, that experience and 1,000 like it in almost 100 different countries became the central focus of my life, and I hope in a small way will become an important part of yours. Going to a strange place, encountering uncomfortable differences, seeing, surviving, making sense, and coming back with a story to tell and a better understanding of another world and of yourself. And it is in that spirit of travel, in honor of Abraham and Ulysses and Jason and Jasmine, in tribute to the transition you are about to begin, that I'd like to offer you 3 pieces of advice for the journey ahead. Advice number 1, disagree with your friends. There was a story in the news this week about a man and a woman who went on a first date. After drinks, the man took out his credit card and paid. A few days later, he messaged his date and asked to see her again. When she politely declined, he asked her to do something that for most of the old fogies in this room, like me, would have seemed unimaginable. He asked her to Venmo him payment for her drinks. Now, as unimaginable as that story is, it's the next part that I want you to remember. Her reason for not going out with him again? She didn't like his political views. Now, speaking as a dad, I hope that each of you finds loving, romantic partners with whom you agree on everything. Politics, religion, the ripeness of bananas you have in your future kitchen. But when it comes to friendships, sweet mates, classmates, I feel the opposite. I pray that you find friends with whom you disagree. We live today in a country where people reside in zip codes and belong to organizations only with people with whom they agree. We consume news sources and follow social media designed to reinforce our pre-existing opinions. We are polarized because we are choosing to be polarized, because it's easier, because it's more comfortable. The next 4 years may be the last best shot you have to learn how to live alongside people with whom you disagree, to learn to listen to them, to learn to love them. Speaking for all us old fogies, please show us how it's done. Please save our country. Please go out of your way to have friends with whom you disagree and talk openly and respectfully about those disagreements. And that leads to advice number 2, change your mind. In my book, I talk about how life transitions involve 3 phases. The first, the long goodbye, is what we are doing today. Accepting that you're in a moment of deep instability and transformation. Then marking that occasion with ritual and ceremony. The second phase is what you're entering now, the messy middle. And the messy middle involves 2 essential life skills: shedding certain habits you become accustomed to, then creating new habits. But as hard as it is to change habits, it's even harder to change your mind. Researchers at Cornell have shown that our brains are faster at processing opinions we agree with and extremely efficient at rejecting evidence that's incompatible with our beliefs. I beseech you to practice the art of changing your mind, a skill that will become only more critical as we confront a new generation of global threats that demand fresh ideas, from AI to pandemics to a warming planet. I'd like to ask you a question to show what I mean. As a native Southerner and a former resident of Nashville, I love football, okay? How many of you have ever been to a football game? Okay? I'm looking at, let's just say 85% of the hands have just gone up. Well, you might be interested to know that my daughters, who grew up in Brooklyn, have never been to a football game. They watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. So I gave them the same piece of advice I'm giving you about changing their minds. Promise me, I told them, that you'll go to a football game. But I have another question for you. How many of you have ever been to the ballet? It's pretty good. But not as many hands have gone up. Well, my daughters danced 6 days a week. They and I have been to dozens of ballets. So my advice to you is go to the ballet. Volunteer at an organic farm. Attend a meeting of the Queer Straight Alliance. Celebrate a Ramadan breakfast. Expose yourself to things you're unfamiliar with. Open your mind, then change your mind. In fact, I'll give you a challenge. I'd like you to pledge here today to change your mind on 10 topics before you graduate, including 1 before this Thanksgiving. And parents and teachers, let's hold them to it. Progress is impossible without change, George Bernard Shaw once said, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And that leads us to advice number 3. Write your own story. The final part of a life transition may be the most important, and it too begins today. It's writing a new chapter in your life story. A life transition, at its heart, is an autobiographical occasion, a moment when we're called on to rethink and revise the story we tell ourselves about who we are. That story involves small details. Do I like to stay up late or get up early? Am I a carnivore or a vegan? But there are big questions too. Do I believe in truth? Do I believe in forgiveness? What brings me happiness? What brings me meaning? And as you rewrite that story, I encourage you not to be bound by the past. What's past is prologue, Shakespeare writes in The Tempest. And while that's true, the prologue need not dictate the plot. You can alter the plot of your life story whenever you want, for whatever reason you want. For something as simple as, I want to change my story. Don't miss this chance. In Genesis 12, after God calls Abraham to go forth, he makes him a promise. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will bless those that bless you, and curse him that curses you, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves through you. And while I don't have the authority or the ability to make that promise to you, I can assure you that each of you has the ability to make it for yourself. You can make yourself a blessing to this world. You can choose to bless us with your gifts. You can make your blessings to our planet, as God later says, as numerous as the stars. And I end today with a message that is so personal to me. It's the same message I gave to my own daughters when I hugged them goodbye with tears in my eyes just days ago. Don't wait for it to come to you, because it won't come to you. Go out and get it. This was your dream to be here today. Now go out and make that dream come true. Go forth, class of 2027. Take trips, take chances, take off. Congratulations and happy travels.
What an awesome remarks. Great advice. Let's give our speaker another round of applause for being with us. Thank you.